Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down how Real Madrid edged Atletico Madrid in their Supercopa de Espana final. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel on our road to 3K subscribers. So when we break down the game and look at the board, no changes in terms of the style that both sides were looking to implement here. We had Real Madrid sticking with that 4-3-2-1 with Isco and Modric in narrow roles to help Real Madrid dominate the midfield, and Atletico persisted with their 4-4-2, with the only change seeing Jimenez come into play for Savage. When you do assess it, the big question here would be how both sides would look to create chances, because that was one of the issues that they encountered in their semi-final clash. When we do look at Atletico Madrid, they only really got going once Vitolo got on and he was able to run at the Barcelona defense. And when we look at Real Madrid, despite dominating the center of the pitch against Valencia, a lot of their best movements did stem down the right-hand side, and they were able to attack when Valencia looked to chase the game, combined with Toni Kroos scoring a goal with the moment of brilliance from that corner kick. But when you do really break it down, that was going to be the key theme here. We saw Atletico Madrid from the offset, pressing from the front. You have Morata and Joao Felix stepping to the center backs, Correa and Saul closing down the fullbacks. And then on occasion, you would see Thomas Partey or you would see Hector Herrera stepping into midfield to close down Casemiro, who was looking to split the center backs. This does present a great opportunity for Real Madrid to get that overload in the center of the pitch to help them build out of the back, because when you have Thomas Partey, for instance, dropping off into that space, whether it be Valverde or Modric, who were interchanging positions, dropping off into a position in that midfield to receive the ball, that does help Real Madrid get out of that zone right there and bypass Atletico Madrid's pressing. But that's what we saw. Besides that, you would expect them to drop off deeper in that 4-4-2 with the strikers in between Casemiro and the wider players tucking in narrow. But they look to press from the front in those earlier stages and have the fullbacks close down Isco and Modric. And what we end up seeing here was that Atletico Madrid's best chances in that opening half did stem from their pressing. When we look to the first example, is Correa pressing Mendy, and he drops the ball off back into the path of Sergio Ramos, who is closed by Morata. And when Morata looks to play the ball into the path of Modric, dropping off a bit deeper, Joao Felix does a good job of blocking off Ramos's loose pass, and he intercepts it. But what ends up happening here is that he lashes his effort inches wide of the net. Shortly after that, we witnessed another example of Atletico Madrid's high pressing, putting Real Madrid in a dangerous zone. What we end up seeing here is Joao Felix stepping into the path of Varane, and he ends up sliding the ball wide to Carvajal, who is instantly closed down by Saul. Carvajal tries to clip the ball into the path of Fede Valverde, who is on the touchline, but Lodi is able to get ahead of him to shoulder the ball across Modric into the path of Thomas Partey. Thomas Partey locates Morata goal side of Varane, so he fizzes the ball in between Casemiro and the narrow Carvajal for Morata, who's able to turn away from Varane and run at Sergio Ramos with Mendy looking to close in, but Morata fires a low effort wide of the near post. When you assess Atletico Madrid, they did drop off deeper due to the fact that Real Madrid did enjoy large spells of possession with the ball, but when they did press high, they forced Real Madrid into some errors, and that was their key route to goal, because they struggled to create from open play and didn't create any chances in transition to test Thibaut Courtois in that opening half. So when we look to Real Madrid, what we end up seeing here is that when Atletico tried to play out from the back, and Atletico did win the ball in their zone, we would see Jovic press a center back, and the spare center back would be closed down by the shuttler. Whether that be Toni Kroos stepping out into the path of Felipe, or Valverde and Modric interchanging roles to step out to press Jimenez. That leaves Isco doing a good job on Trippier. We rarely did see Trippier push forward to deliver crosses from right back. And then Valverde or Modric, whoever was on the right-hand side, would be tasked with closing down Lodi, looking to push forward. Ramos and Varane would go 1v1 with the center forwards who were looking to drop off. And Casemiro did a very good job of sweeping up any danger that was around that midfield zone. So Now, when you look at that and see how organized Real Madrid were in terms of looking to close down their markers, the issue with Real Madrid's approach here was that they were very narrow as well, and that plays into Atletico's hands as they drop off into those two narrow banks of four. And what Barcelona did well against Atletico is that they were able to mix it up, go long, and get the wider players involved in the game. Here, when Real Madrid tried to do that, they often shifted laterally and they pushed more of their attack to the right-hand side. Because when you look at it, you have Isco shifting out into the central positions, looking to drift laterally to link play with his teammates. But on each zone that they look to exploit, which is shifting the game out into the wider areas, Atletico Madrid were comfortably organized and they coped with Real Madrid's threat easily. There was no penetration. Like I said, Real Madrid lacked goal-scoring players in that final third. And besides Jovic's presence around that 18-yard box, there were no penetrative runs in behind, and Atletico coped well. When you look at the right-hand side, it sums it up perfectly. You have Modric and Valverde swapping zones, and all it takes for Atletico Madrid here is to have, obviously, Lodi sticking on the most advanced player. At times, we did see Modric, Valverde, and Carvajal swap those zones throughout. We would see Carvajal shifting out ahead of his markers, Valverde holding the width, and Modric dropping off deeper. Sometimes we see Valverde deeper and Modric out in the wider zone. Sometimes we see Carvajal hold the touchline and Modric a bit higher. But all it took for Atletico Madrid to do is to shift over Saul, have Lodi stick to his marker, and then have Thomas Partey or Jimenez, if free, step into that zone to cope with that threat. And even if Isco tried to shift over to that right-hand zone, which he did on a few occasions, that's where you pull the center back forward, or you switch off your center back if Jimenez is marking out Jovic. You push Felipe into that zone and have Jimenez push forward to have it 4v4. So Atletico Madrid cope with that threat down the right-hand side very well, and Real Madrid struggled to knit passes together to bypass their defense in that zone. And on the left-hand side, it was the same thing. We would see Toni Kroos drop off into that left channel where he likes to pick up the ball away from pressure. And what Atletico Madrid did here was that they had Correa step out to Kroos, but at times we would have Correa shift out into the path of Mendy, who was pushing forward. And if he shifted out into the path of Mendy, then Herrera would push forward. So you'd see Herrera, you would see Correa, and they would dominate that zone. And then Trippier would cope with Isco if he shifted out into that left-handed touchline. So you see how they were trying to operate down the left and the right, but Atletico Madrid coped with that threat well when Real Madrid tried to combine in those wider areas. And besides that, Real Madrid couldn't penetrate Atletico Madrid's shape in that central area. And their best chance of that first half, besides Casemiro and Modric shooting from distance to barely test Oblak, stemmed from a simple ball over the top. When we break down that play, it was one of the phases where we did see Correa and Joao Felix swap roles. So what ended up happening here was that there was no press on Sergio Ramos. We had Isco dropping into space between Herrera and Joao Felix, and that creates space for Mendy to push forward ahead of Trippier. So Ramos clips that ball over Trippier, and we end up seeing Mendy break down that left channel to receive the ball, go 1v1 with Trippier, and poke the ball beyond him into left half space to pull out Felipe. But Mendy only could fire a tame effort at the near post that Oblak easily saved. When you break down that first half, there wasn't really much to talk about in terms of the evolution of either side's tactical approach from the semi-final. Atletico Madrid pressed high and forced Real Madrid into mistakes, and that was their sole route to goal. Besides that, they rarely created any chances, but Simeone does deserve credit for dealing with Real Madrid's overload in central areas. They coped well out in the wider areas, having the center backs, the full backs, the midfielders, and sometimes the forwards, because what I didn't mention also was that Joao Felix did a very good job. If they couldn't get Jimenez to join that four-man battle if Isco shifted over, Joao Felix did a very good job of dropping off to cope and help out his teammates in that zone. But Real Madrid struggled to create chances. They couldn't get any combination plays out in the wider zones. And frankly, besides going long to Mendy, they didn't really test Oblak, and that was an issue that Zidane had to fix in the second half. So when we looked at the second half, we did see a more direct approach from Real Madrid initially. We saw Jovic run at both center backs and look to break at the Atletico Madrid box where he nearly beat Jimenez, but Jimenez was able to poke the ball away from him to help Real Madrid earn a corner kick. However, shortly after that, we also saw them bypass Atletico Madrid's pressing by going a bit longer, and that nearly created a chance for Real Madrid to take the lead. When we look at it, we do see Joao Felix and we also see Morata stepping to the center backs. We have Morata against Varane, and we also see Casemiro drop off to try and split the center backs, and that prompts Thomas Partey to step towards the Real Madrid center midfielder. What we end up seeing here is Modric for the first time actually dropping off a bit deeper into midfield to create that passing lane that I was talking about. And what ends up happening there is that Varane is able to clip the ball over Thomas Partey, who does retreat and try to get back to close down Modric, but he misses the ball. Modric picks it up. He's able to run across Saul, skip beyond Hector Herrera, and with Jimenez coming across, he slides the ball across Jimenez for Jovic, making a darting run in between Trippier and Felipe. So Jovic picks up the ball and he ends up taking it across Trippier, but he lashes his shot wide of the far post, and that was a great opportunity for Real Madrid to go ahead, but it also highlights the direct play that we didn't see from them in that first half. Shortly after that, we witnessed Simeone turn to his bench, bringing on Vitolo for Herrera, which ended up seeing Saul move into a center position. And what ended up happening here was that once again, Real Madrid were able to bypass Atletico Madrid's pressing, go long, and once again it stemmed through Mendy. What we ended up seeing here was Morata this time stepping into the path of Ramos, looking to close him down, and Mendy ended up pushing higher up the pitch to occupy Trippier, which allowed Toni Kroos space to drop off a bit deeper and pull out Correa. So once Ramos plays that ball into Toni Kroos, Kroos is able to locate Mendy making the run off Trippier, and he clips the ball over the Atletico Madrid right back to pick out Mendy in that left channel. So Mendy's breaking forward down that left channel, and he ends up being closed by Trippier and Thomas Partey coming across. And what he ends up doing is he pulls the ball back into the path of Luka Modric, and he's able to gain a yard on Saul, but he also bends his effort inches wide of the net. Minutes later, we did see Rodrygo replace Isco, and Real Madrid kind of shifted into more of a rigid 4-3-3. What we ended up seeing, there was a Jovic was still up front. We had Rodrygo now playing in that left wider role, looking to run at Trippier, and what we saw on the right-hand side was a more narrow Valverde looking to shift into that midfield. We often saw different variations of how that side would look to field when Real Madrid had the ball. We had Carvajal for the most part a bit higher, looking to operate ahead of Lodi, and that would allow him to play crosses into the box if he did receive the ball. Valverde would occupy the wider positions to ensure that they had width, and we would see Modric drop off into a deeper position to pick up the ball and ensure that Real Madrid retained it on that side of the pitch. But that didn't really help Real Madrid dominate the game. Rodrygo didn't really impact it. Jovic was still quiet throughout, and although we did see them create a good quality chance by combining down that right-hand side where Valverde possibly should have finished from 4 yards out, but he knocked the ball off his thigh, Real Madrid didn't really create any chances following that tactical change. The next best chance following Valverde's miss did see All Black punt the ball into the path of Mendy, who won it over Morata, and it fell to Thomas, and he instantly clipped the ball into the vacant right channel for Correa to run onto and to drag out Sergio Ramos. So he drags out Sergio Ramos, and then we see the overlapping run of Trippier looking to push forward, and we ended up seeing Correa dropped the ball off to Trippier. So now we have Ramos, Mendy, and Rodrygo down that side. And what ends up happening here is that Mendy steps a bit forward, and what he doesn't notice is that Morata is looking to run off his shoulder. And what Trippier does locate is Morata making that darting run into right half space. So he wraps the ball around Rodrygo and Sergio Ramos for Morata, who lets it bounce. And before Ramos can put a challenge in, he fires a low shot on goal that's at the perfect height height for Courtois to push away. After that, we did see both managers turn to their bench. Mariano ended up replacing Jovic, and we saw Marcos Llorente come on for Lodi, which pushed Saul to left back. Simeone wanted to add more physicality to his midfield to protect the back four, and Zidane wanted a different option up front that could go in beyond the defense and drift out into the channels to run at defenders. That second half was about Real Madrid looking to shift their initial approach, and they did a good job of being more direct, bypassing Atletico Madrid's press. Luka Modric was involved in their best chances, offering a bit more penetration with his dribbling and his passing. But when you do really assess it, yes, Valverde possibly should have killed off the game to help Real Madrid win it in normal time. But although they did get better in that second half, again, Oblak not really being forced to make any key saves. So when we look to extra time, nothing really progressed in terms of the tactical battle. Vitolo did come close to beating Courtois following a great passing move from Atletico Madrid, but his effort was a bit tame following some Ramos pressure, and Courtois dealt with it well. Both managers ended up turning to their bench once again. We saw Savic come on for Jimenez. We also saw Arias come on for Joao Felix. And we did see Atletico Madrid shift into more of a 4-5-1 without the ball, with Saul joining Marcos Llorente and Thomas Partey in midfield. And that was a big tactical shift for them, as you have Correa and Vitolo dropping off deeper in those wider areas. And we also saw Zidane sacrifice Toni Kroos for Vinicius, and that also saw them move to a 4-3-3. So it looked like both sides were adopting identical shapes. And in the second half of extra time, that's where we saw Real Madrid once again get another golden opportunity to kill off the game, and it stems through Luka Modric. Modric drops off a bit deeper to get on the ball, and he ends up splitting Llorente and Saul, and he also ends up splitting Arias and Felipe to find Vinicius running off Felipe into the right channel. So he runs off into the right channel, and he's able to hold off Arias, and he ends up pulling the ball back into Modric, continuing his run ahead of Thomas to fire a shot on goal that is pushed away by Oblak, and it ends up falling into the path of Mariano, who's able to gain a yard on his marker and also fire another shot on goal, but it was tame and Oblak was able to save it. The game did shift once Valverde was sent off for pulling back Morata, and that saw Real Madrid go down to 10 men. They shifted into more of a 4-4-1 without the ball, and Atletico Madrid did receive 2 chances on top of Morata's overhead kick following a Courtois error in the box. Correa on 2 occasions got down that right half space to fire a tame effort on goal for Courtois to save, and then he had a low cross deflected off Mendy that once again Courtois was able to push away. The game went to penalty kicks. Real Madrid were successful once again, but when you break it down as a whole, both sides showed their tactical issues here. Atletico Madrid, for as great as they are without the ball, still struggle to have a direct route to goal. They don't have a clear identity in terms of how they're going to create chances, and here once again we witnessed that. Besides some mistakes from Real Madrid, along with Atletico's high pressing that did cause Real Madrid a few issues in that opening first half, we didn't know how they were going to score goals. Whereas for Real Madrid, it's more of a personnel issue. Here they try to overload the central positions once again, and they were able to do that. But when they shifted out into wider areas to combine, Atletico coped well, and we know how good Atletico are when teams try to play through the middle of the pitch. But once they went a bit more direct, got Luka Modric on the ball in deeper positions, they were able to create chances. And frankly, they will feel like they possibly should have won this game in normal time. But let me know what you guys think. Are Real Madrid favorites to win La Liga this season? Can Atletico challenge them? And do you see one of these sides challenging for the Champions League this season? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And once again, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.